Hello, Professor Wang. Hope you're doing good. Today, my topic for this presentation is Indian startup funding. The dataset that I have used contains data for a period of 3 years, that is from 2015 to 2017. So, we have heard a lot of stories about Silicon Valley startups and their growth stories, but if we look at the current trend, the development in the emerging countries and high growth market are being overshadowed by the massive growth in the emerging market. The growth story of huge number of Indian startups is emerging on a global scale. And with recent changes in the policies made by the Indian government, a large number of investors are actually considering and have moved towards investing in the startup ecosystem of India. To support the story, I have used dataset from Kaggle.com, which comprises of data over 3 years, that is 2015, 2016, and 2017. So I have provided sample data of like the screenshot of the sample data. So you can see the number of columns here, which are date, the startup names, industry vertical, their sub-vertical, then the startup location, that is the city in India, the investor's name, the investment type, and the amount in USD. I also have a column called remarks, which is not very important, I believe, but yeah, and most of the entries for this column is blank. All right. So moving on to the next slide, the basic idea of my project is to monitor and analyze the Indian startup ecosystem. And to accomplish this, I have focused on the following. That is, what type of startups are getting funded in these years, the important investors that are involved in this, the type of industries that get a lot of funding, that is like e-commerce, consumer electronics, internet, etc., and the range of investment received by each company in each industry vertical. So I believe the potential audience for my project would be entrepreneurs, the startup enthusiasts, the economists who would be analyzing the data and the trends to uh, predict predict the market over the next years, and of course the investors who would be looking at the trend of investments in the particular industry type and the company, and like this would enable them to provide their decisions of whether they want to invest in these industries or these companies. All right, so this is my first plot. This shows the top 10 categories of investment. And so basically how many startups were funded in total in these years, and what were the top industry verticals. This can be answered from this plot. Moving on to the next plot, uh, uh, how much funding did these verticals receive in total can be answered from this plot of amount in USD invested in each vertical. From this quarterly investment on startups plot, we see three spikes in 2015 third quarter, 2017 first quarter, and 2017 second quarter. So, what might be the reason for this unusual spikes? We can see the amount of investment that has been made in the other quarters are similar, and the reason for these unusual spikes in these three places might be because of huge investments in some popular and e-commerce and technology startups. This is a very important plot of investor name versus the amount in USD spent by them, and I have grouped it based on the industry verticals. So the data question that I have formulated from this graph is that which have been the most successful investors in India over the period of these 3 years. If we delve deeper into the dataset, we can also find out what is the average investment received by, say, top 20 startups in India in this period of time. So here's a summary of the data questions that I have addressed from the plots and by analyzing the dataset. This brings me to the end of my presentation. So I believe there are a lot of data questions that can be formed from this dataset and which can help us visualize and further understand the startup ecosystem in India. Thank you so much for being an audience to my presentation, and hope you found it interesting, and I hope I have done a good work. Thank you. Have a good day.